Kane is in the building.
Good morning, NAILBA, and welcome to Not the Gaylord Texan. Before I forget, make sure to mark your calendars for NAILBA 38 on Thanksgiving at the Gaylord Texan. Just kidding about the Thanksgiving part at least. I mean, what kind of association would host an annual business meeting where you have to abandon your families on a holiday? Speaking of families, I want to thank mine for their patience and tolerance over the past year. To my kids and to my staff, and mostly to Linda, my wife. Lucky Linda got to stay home this year and pass out candy to over 600 eager trick-or-treaters. She was super happy when she found out I'd be working this Halloween. And by working, of course, I mean hitting golf balls at a driving range / amusement park with cocktails and Slades and David Ledbetter. I've been asked to speak for a few minutes about the state of this association by Dan Labert, NAILBA's new CEO. What? I asked him. Me? Just a few minutes? Leave them wanting more, he said. I told him I had no earthly idea what that meant, no clue when it came to that concept. I know I'm entirely capable of leaving you wanting less, sometimes much, much less, and occasionally I'm somehow capable of leaving you just wanting nothing, nothing at all. But more? Nevertheless, I'll shoot for that ideal, because I've learned to listen to Dan, for Dan is a buffalo. Let me explain. We were finalizing the deal with Dan a while back when I heard our friend Jack DeWalt ask a group of us if we knew the difference between a cow and a buffalo. He told us that when a storm came, cows would turn and walk away from the storm. As cows, the move was slow, so the storm caught up to them and they actually had to deal with it for a longer period of time as they moved in its direction. A buffalo, on the other hand, instinctually turns into the storm head on and passes through it much more quickly. And yes, there is a storm, and yes, Dan is a buffalo. But really, he's only part buffalo, because in this speech's metaphor, he's the captain of our ship. So maybe he's part buffalo, part ship's captain, like a figure in mythology, like maybe he's called Bisonauticus, or... I'm sorry. I stray so far off the mark when I get up here. Back to the ship part. All aboard the good ship NAILBA. Our forefathers, and in many cases our actual fathers, built this ship. They equipped it with engines that drive momentum, design that creates leverage, and state-of-the-art equipment that provided relevance. We hired Dan because we decided unilaterally that he was the right choice to steer us where we needed to go. But as he took his seat at the captain's table and began to chart our course, he realized that we were stalled, a victim to the tides. Before we could go full steam ahead, we had to turn this ship around. And lo, we are turned. Under your new NAILBA, we have renegotiated antiquated contractual agreements that will save the association $2.1 million over the next 5 years. We have delivered on our promise to increase your dues ROI with partnerships with Innsmark, National Purchasing Partners, the American College, Ruby Receptionist, and PhysEdNet. We podcast, we webinar, we measure and track data. Participation in any one of these platforms will more than recoup your membership fee. And this annual meeting feels different because it is different. We have packed in the time frame, yet increased interaction with our carrier partners. Yesterday, we had a fantastic summit meeting with our IMO members. And we're playing golf again. So the turnaround of the good ship NAILBA is complete, and as we turned, Dan and his staff primed the pumps in the engine room. Brass polished. Hatches battened down. So today, right here, now, this morning, the palpable excitement of growth and camaraderie pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. And I do want to focus on where we're headed, but I wanted to take just a few more quick points, make a few more quick points on all we've accomplished during my iron, tyrannical, yet somehow humble reign. Employee turnover is at about 96%. We accepted the resignation of a board member. We might have ruffled the feathers of a couple other associations. Budgets are unprecedented and mildly frightening. We may change our accountant, our financial advisor, and our legal team. We may seriously adjust the lease on our building. Hell, we even fired our florist. And yet I've accomplished all these iron, tyrannical, yet somehow humble objectives with such an air of quiet, humble servant leadership that when I recently posted something on NAILBA Network as your fearless ruler, I received an email from a past chairman who I will not name because I cannot name him because he already has a name, and that name is Ray Phillips. But he said, and I quote, "I thought Jim Sorbo was the chairman of NAILBA." Actually, I have a message for you, NAILBA members only, so carrier partners, please continue to not pay attention for the moment. My fellow BGAs, you may be hearing rumors, substantiated or otherwise, that the carriers are squeezing us out. There is an eerie feeling in the distribution air. This feeling is perpetuated when I spend some point-of-sale time with a client, close a deal with a carrier, then get in the car, turn on the radio, and immediately hear a commercial for that same carrier's direct process. Has that happened to you? Or when my BGA friend down south spends hours with an agent, and this really happened, closing a $5 million policy, only to hear that the client drove down to Costco and purchased the exact same plan from the exact same carrier at a 3% discount, undercut by the same carrier. But I don't think they want us gone. That would be short-sighted. I mean, who would act as fiduciary? And NAILBA members already maintain a carrier distribution network that spreads out into every neighborhood across the country. What they seem to be trying to do is plan ahead, based on their concern that we're an aging system with aging customers and may not be around a whole while longer, that our market penetration and thereby our relevance will fade. Perhaps we shouldn't blame them. They have budgets to meet, stockholders to satisfy, even claims to pay. Carriers are hedging their bets for the first time, and they'll replace us if we don't learn how to replace ourselves. So our charge is to shift our momentum, to reinvent the relevance that we currently enjoy, and to steer this ship in a new direction. What will that look like? Where will we go? I don't claim to know what independent brokerage distribution might look like, but I guarantee I know where it will come from. It will come from this room, from our members. We will hear it from our brokers, who maybe heard it from their clients. It seems to me that most of the best ideas in the end can be traced back to the end consumer, and it's our job to make those ideas happen. So I want to focus this morning real briefly on two topics, the process and the premium. On the process side, the NAILBA member looks very different today and going forward. Let me guess, you're all probably doing more and more point-of-sale work. Personal production is no longer taboo. Maybe you're looking into settlements. You're in the banks, you're in the P&C shops, you're in the booth at the fun run, maybe you're the one at the superstore. There's probably a policy you can sell electronically in about 9 minutes from your cell phone. You can't. I can't even get my flashlight to turn off. And when the process needs an overhaul, NAILBA members reinvent it. Take a look at the Marketing Alliance, where Tim Clusis and his staff built their own drop-ticket fulfillment center. Carriers had built their own, but that's just it. It was their own and only their own. The TMA process requires that the BGA be central to the entire platform and that we are the secret sauce that makes the whole thing work. Or take a look at BSMG's Vive process. Jason Lee explained it to me when he said, quote, "Vive is a positive disruptor, like Netflix was 15 years ago. Netflix rendered Blockbuster obsolete because they thought of a better model, but the first version didn't go so well. There was some discomfort with putting DVDs into mailboxes on a regular basis. Then, once the bandwidth became available, Netflix revised their process entirely. That's what we're doing with Vive," Jason said. "It's ridiculously fast and easy, and on transactional term, that's the future." Now, on the premium side, I think it's important for our carrier partners to remember that NAILBA is the only association directly tied to premium. It seems to me that it makes sense to invest where the money is. At our core, we are still a networking community. We still share sales ideas. I remember fondly the years when our annual meeting marked the introduction of a brand new product by a carrier. I wonder what happened to that. NAILBA members continue to share ideas that work, and that's a win for everybody. In a way, we're like a super duper IMO study group. Finally, a few thoughts on fiduciary responsibility, also known as the douche or the F word. I'm sure you've seen it's rearing its ugly head again, and we will need to advocate for both the consumer and the carrier on this issue. But first, a quick impression. This is me in my office as a BGA after some misguided regulation regarding fiduciary responsibility, commission disclosure, and levelized comp has forced me into an awkward fee-for-service model and to charge an outlandish hourly rate for my services. It's really playing the piano. Thank you. All right, so 2 random rants before I'm dragged off the stage. Number 1, if we can't see non-guaranteed values on an in-force illustration, we can't perform fiduciary duties anyway. That's like taking your car to the mechanic and having him fix it, but not allowing him to open the hood. Number 2, keep in mind, we fight to get standard cases to preferred. We fight to get rated cases to standard. In a way, the better job we do, the less money we are paid. I would say that's fairly uncommon, and we do it not out of a fiduciary responsibility, but out of our own moral obligation. The future of NAILBA is in great hands. Myra Palmer will lead our next chapter with grace and dignity and a quiet, fierce efficiency. Plus, I think it's a physiological impossibility to say no to Myra Palmer. And Chad Milner, he's going to blow the roof off of this thing. We got you here. We'll get you there. Don't forget to vote. Thank you very much.